Hey guys, this is Sergeant Phoenix back in the action, and today we are doing our deck profile on Gimmick Puppets. As you know, or if you don't know, Gimmick Puppets are used by Quattro in the Zexal era, solely focused on Xyz summoning, and they have their own numbers. Some I were able to get, some I weren't able to get, but I've made a decent deck and hope that you believe so as too. Now first we start with monster spells and traps, and then the extra deck. So first we have Gimmick Puppet Terror Bearer, and its effect is, when this card is normal summoned, you can target one Gimmick Puppet monster in your graveyard except the Terror Bearer, special summon it in the defense position. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Your opponent cannot activate effects or cards in response to the activation of your Gimmick Puppet monster effects this turn. Next we have Destroy. I'll only say the second name's not Gimmick Puppets because they're all of them but 2 copies of cards are Gimmick Puppets. And Destroy's effect, once while face up on the field, you can target one Gimmick Puppet monster on the field, destroy it. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 or 2 Gimmick Puppet monsters from your hand. Next we have Humpty Dumpty, and it's quite an okay card, I would say, because when this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon 1 Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand. You can only use this effect of Humpty Dumpty once per turn. This one is more effective if you're going to rely on your graveyard mostly. Yugioh. And her effect is, which is good to have 3 copies, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 other Gimmick Puppet monster from your graveyard, special summon this card. You can only use the effect of Gimmick Puppet Yugioh once per turn, and it cannot be used as material of an Xyz summon except for the Xyz summon of a Gimmick Puppet monster, which is all the monsters in my deck. Next are 3 Magnet Dolls, and its effect, if your opponent controls a monster and all monsters you control are face-up Gimmick Puppet monsters, minimum 1, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you have 3 of them and you have 1 Gimmick Puppet, you can summon all 3, because there's nothing that stops you from summoning them. Next we have 2 copies of Scissor Arms, and this card's effect, when this card is normal summoned, you can send 1 Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck to the graveyard. So you could use Yugioh again. Next we have Nightmare. And you could add 2 copies of this. I would recommend 2 copies, but I did add other cards that would help be more effective than Nightmare. Because this card's effect, you can special summon this card from your hand by tributing 1 face-up Xyz monster you control. You can only use special summon Gimmick Puppet monster Nightmare once per turn this way. When you do, you can special summon 1 Gimmick Puppet Nightmare from your hand or graveyard. If this card is special summoned, you cannot special summon any monsters for the rest of the turn except Gimmick Puppet monsters. Next, we have our 1 copy cards. So meaning I have only 1 of each of these cards of these monsters now. This is Bescadol. And its effect, you can special summon this card from your hand by discarding 1 Gimmick Puppet monster. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Your opponent cannot target Gimmick Puppet monsters you control with card effects this turn. So you could use the Terror Baby and that one just if you want to summon out an army of Gimmick Puppets. Next we have Twilight Joker. This card's effect, when a Gimmick Puppet monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish that monster to special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Twilight Joker once per turn. Next we have 1 copy of Gear Changer. It cannot be special summoned from the deck. Once per turn you can target 1 Gimmick Puppet monster you control except this card. this card's level becomes the level of that monster. So if I targeted this monster when I normal summon, it will become a level 8 as well. Our last one copy Gimmick Puppet is Egghead. And this card has 2 effects, but each one can only be activated by discarding 1 card. The first discard effect, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. And the second effect, this card's level becomes level 8 until the end turn. And Quattro used this for a combination attack when he summoned his number 15 in under 2 turns when he played a 2-on-2 duel. He was with his brother Trey. He had this with 2 jewelry dolls and some other cards in his hand. The first thing he did was summon this, discard one of the jewelry dolls, inflict 800. Then when it was his turn again, he discarded the second jewelry doll to make it a level 8. Then used one jewelry doll to banish the other to special summon the first one. Then he overlaid them for number 15, which is a really good effect. The reason I said the last Gimmick Puppets is because of these. I added these ones in for extra. I'm doing the profile! This card's effect is, this name is Gearspring Spirit, and its effect is, it cannot be normal summoned nor set. It must first be special summoned from your hand by having only machine type monsters in your graveyard, minimum 1. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes 0 until the end phase. So you could use these. Bronk used it in Zexal to defeat number 96, then attacked with Utopia. And you could use it in this deck as well, just in case you need more level 8s, and in case you need to make your opponent lose one of his most powerful monsters' attack points, if possible. Next we have the spell cards, 3 copies of Perform Puppet, and this is a continuous spell with the effects, You can banish 1 Gimmick Puppet monster from your graveyard. All monsters you currently control become that banished monster's level until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. If a face-up Gimmick Puppet monster or monsters you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your banished Gimmick Puppet monsters, special summon it. You can only use each effect of Perform Puppet once per turn. And that is a good effect to use. I've used it against people because I have tested this deck out and it is quite effective. Next we have 3 copies of Junk Puppet. It is almost like a Monster Reborn, but the differences are target 1 Gimmick Puppet monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only activate 1 Junk Puppet per turn. The reason I say it's like Monster Reborn because it lets you bring back a monster, but the only difference is this solely focuses on Gimmick Puppets and your graveyard. Next we have 1 copy of Puppet Ritual. This card's effect. If your opponent's life points are at least 2,000 higher than yours, you can target 2 level 8 Gimmick Puppet monsters in your graveyard, special summon those targets. You can only activate 1 Puppet Ritual per turn, and you cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. But if you need to summon another more level 8s, you could still use that as long as they're in your graveyard. Now, this one was one of the most favourites in my opinion, of the Rank Up Magics. This one was made by Quinton Train Quattro specifically to fight the Baryons head-to-head, face-to-face. Since Baryons use chaos numbers with each of them having their own number card over 100 and their own chaos numbers, this would be quite a powerful. It was a good way of fighting them face to face. Even though they lost, it was the best weapon they had against them. Because this card's effect, Target one rank 5 or higher Xyz monster you control. Special summon from your extra deck one chaos number or chaos Xyz monster that is one rank higher than that monster you control by using it as an Xyz material. This special summon is treated as an Xyz summon. Xyz materials attached to it also become Xyz materials on the summoned monster. When a rank 5 or higher Xyz monster is special summoned to your side of the field, while this card is in your graveyard except during the damage step, you can add this card from the graveyard to your hand. You can only use this effect of Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force once per duel. And that is the name if I forgot to say what it was. Its name is Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force. Next we're on our last two spell cards, which are both quick spells. The first one being Twin Twister. You discard a card, target up to 2 spell trap cards in the field and destroy them. The next one is Limiter Removal, which works since all the monsters in the deck are machines. This card's effect doubles the attack of all machine monsters you currently control, but during the end phase, all those monsters that were powered up by this effect are destroyed. Now we're up to our the last cards in the main deck, which are the traps. The first being 3 copies of Puppet Parade, I should say. I don't know where Parade came from. And this card's effect, which works with the Rank Up Magic card, and I'll show you why. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, special summon Gimmick Puppet monsters with different names from your deck up to the difference. Then, if your opponent's life points are at least 2,000 higher than yours, you can set one Rank Up Magic normal spell directly from your deck. For the rest of the turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except Gimmick Puppet monsters. You can only activate Puppet Parade per turn. So, like I said, it'll help you have the Rank Up Magic on the field, then you can activate it. This trap card also works, and this works really well with the Chaos Force because it has the name of Argent Chaos in its name in the title, and I'll show you why. This card is known as Marshalling Field, a continuous in its effect. You cannot special summon monsters except machine type monsters. Once per turn, you can declare one level from 5 to 9. All level 5 or higher machine type monsters you control become that level. If a machine type Xyz monster you control would be destroyed, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force from your deck or graveyard to your hand. As I said, this works specifically for the Argent Chaos, as it says, because it allows you to add it from your graveyard to your hand or deck to your hand. So if you've used the once per duel effect, where it adds it from where you can have it from the graveyard back to your hand, you can as well use the Marshal Field to add it back to your hand as well, if you want to summon more than just more than just 2 Chaos Xyz monsters, which I have. Next we have Mirror Force. As everyone should know, when your opponent monster declares an attack, it destroys all attack position monsters on your opponent controls, if that are possible. But if your opponent's monsters can't be destroyed by card effects, that will not affect them. Next we have Bottomless Trap Hole. When your opponent special summons a monster or monsters with 1500 or more attack, destroy that monster or monsters with 1500 or more attack, and if you do, banish it. And that is it for the main deck. The main deck is solely focused on summoning more than at least 3 or 4 Gimmick Puppet monsters, the minimum being 2. But the reason is for the extra deck. First we have the Link monster, Chimera Doll, which requires 2 machine monsters with it being a Link 2. Its effect, during the main phase, if you control this Link summoned card, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except Machine Xyz monsters. Also take one Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Then, if all monsters you control are Gimmick Puppet monsters, minimum one, you can special summon one Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand. You can only use this effect of Chimera Doll once per turn. Next we have the rank 4 Gigantus Doll. And this needs 2 level 4 Gimmick Puppet monsters. And I would wisely place this in defense since it has no attack, but it has 2000 defense. Its effect, you can detach 2 Xyz materials from this card, then target up to 2 monsters your opponent controls. Gain control of them until the end phase. Also, for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters except Gimmick Puppet monsters, nor declare an attack except with Xyz monsters. You contribute this card. All monsters you currently control become level 8 until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Gimmick Puppet Doll, Gigantus Doll, once per turn. So you could use that and allow other. So you can also use your opponent's monster effects, and that can work because these numbers which I will show, do not require specifically Gimmick Puppets or just the levels. This one being 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet of Strings, which requires 2 level 8s. With 3000 attack points making it a decent fighting machine, its effect is quite as effective. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, place 1 string counter on each face-up monster on the field, except this card. Then, once per turn, during the next end phase of the opponent of the player who placed a string counter or counters by this effect, destroy the monsters with string counters, and if you do, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. Meaning, if my opponent, let's say, has a link monster, then 5 monsters, that will be around 3,000 points of damage since they all have string counters and were destroyed by this effect. Which makes it a deep, and since it does not need certain requirements but 2 level 8s to summon it, you can use it in almost any deck. This card, number 88, Gimmick Puppet of Leo, was actually declared, if it's not still declared, on the top 10 instant win cards for its unique effect, which needs 3 level 8 monsters, so you don't need certain other monsters but level 8s to summon it, with 3200 attack, which could fight almost any monster your opponent uses. It has this effect. Once per turn, if you have no cards in your spell or trap card zone, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, and if you do, place 1 destiny counter on this card. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. Its instant win effect, when 3 destiny counters are on this card, you win the duel. Its Chaos number 88 Disaster Leo has a similar effect. Once per turn, you use an Xyz material and inflicts, I believe, 1,000 points of damage to your opponent, or 2,000. And during the end, I do not believe you can conduct your battle phase the turn you activate that effect, but I know its effect is, for the instant win, if your opponent's life, during a certain end phase, I believe, if your opponent's life points are 2,000 or lower, then you win the duel. It can make it. Disaster Leo is quite a dangerous card if used correctly. Next we have the one for Marshalling Field. You don't have to have Marshalling Field if you don't want to, but I have it on for this card. You can add number 6 and Chaos number 6 as well, but I don't have them, but they would still be effective for the deck. This needs 2 level 9s, and this card is known as number 9 Dyson Sphere. Its effects are, once per battle step during your opponent's turn, if this card with Xyz materials is attacked, negate the attack, and this is a quick effect. Its second effect, When this card is targeted for an attack while it has no Xyz materials, you can target 2 monsters in your graveyard, attach those targets to this card as Xyz materials. During the main phase 1, you can detach one, and this is its last effect. During the first main phase of your turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card. This card can attack your opponent directly this turn. Your opponent must control a monster with a higher attack than this card for you to activate and to resolve this effect. So let's say I went up against a Blue Eyes deck and my opponent used had Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field while I controlled this. Since 3000 attack is more than 2800, I can attack my opponent directly that turn because my monster isn't the one with the highest attack. Now we're up to the 3 Chaos Xyz monsters. Apologies, just checking something. Yeah, what would he? Yeah. And these are the rank ups which are the Chaos numbers. You can use this one because Argent Chaos only says to rank up. There's no rule saying I can't use other monsters to rank up. I can't use other Chaos monsters in order to. And these do not have certain requirements. So this card's effect, its name, Chaos number 40, Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings, needs 3 level 9s. Its effect is, when this card is special summoned, destroy the monsters with string counters, and if you do, draw 1 card. Then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the highest original attack among those monsters in the graveyard. Your choice of draw. So if I destroyed Blue Eyes White Dragon, if I destroyed 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons when I summoned this while they had string counters, I just choose one of them since they're both tied and they have the highest attack. And once per turn, I can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, place 1 string counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. So this won't affect your monsters, which makes it's not as effective, but if you have number 40 on the field, you can still use it can be more dangerous. Now this card's effect. Now this is Chaos number 15, Gimmick Puppet, Giant Hunter. I can use this because of the Argent Chaos. I just need to use level number 40 of strings. This card's effect, once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, then target 1 card your opponent controls. Destroy it. And if you do, and it was a monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. I believe I've mentioned of number 15's effect, and if I have not, I'll explain again. For number 15, you use detach 1 Xyz material to target 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy it. If it was an Xyz monster, your opponent takes damage equal to its original attack points. So it's almost like that card, except it'll inflict the damage on inflict the damage no matter what monster you choose, which is still effective. The last card in the extra deck is Chaos Dyson Sphere, which is Chaos number 9. This is one of my most favourite Chaos numbers because of its effects. The first being, at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can attach that monster to this card as a face-up Xyz material. Its second effect, once per turn, you can inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each Xyz material attached to this card. So let's say I've attached 10 cards because I've kept attacking and gaining those and keep gaining them. I can inflict 3,000 points of damage to my opponent. And the other effect, the last effect, which is in the bracket here, needs number 9 Dyson Sphere to activate it. It needs number 9 as an Xyz material to activate it. Its effect is, once per turn, you can detach any number of Xyz material from this card, inflict 800 damage to your opponent for each of them. That would mean if I had the 10 Xyz materials on that card and the Dyson Sphere, I could use the 300 first to inflict 3,000, then I can use the final effect to inflict 8,000 points of damage if there's 10 cards by using all 10 of them, which would deal 11,000 points of damage, which is obviously higher than the original life points. If your opponent doesn't have life points that are higher than 11,000, if you manage to get it up there, you can instantly win the duel, which is really good. I would say that Gimmick Puppets are really good cards to use. They're effective, they mostly focus on summoning each other, and they deal damage, and they're focused on damaging you, especially the chaos numbers. Comment down below what you think, and I am hoping to use Ad Ignitus as the next deck profile. But until then, this is Sergeant Phoenix, over and out.